to the Suzanne Atwell Show, a monthly roundup of news and public affairs that have impacted the Suncoast. We start with a story that affects everyone who has ever driven to downtown Sarasota or St. Armand's Circle. We are talking specifically about the possible return of parking meters on Main Street. With that in mind, we set off on a little experiment.
We are looking at what are the parking spots available from Main to 301.
First stop, the Courthouse Center parking garage on Ringling. Only about 1/3 full. Next, Hollywood 20 on Main. We're driving up the ramps, and yes, it's pretty empty. This is an older facility that needs work, but it's right downtown and nobody's in here. Let's head down to the Palm Avenue garage. Plenty of parking here as well. And this is a modern facility. And finally, the new State Street garage. The lower levels are pretty much full. Gotta go to the top floor to find a place here. What's the bottom line? Number one, there are too many cars driving up and down Main Street looking for parking places. Number two, not enough people are using public parking garages. And number three, there is no such thing as free parking. Right now, tax dollars, not drivers, subsidize on-street and garage parking. Whether or not paid parking on Main Street will change that remains to be seen. Another story that has been around for a long time in Sarasota, how to provide sustainable, humane assistance that provides a course to recovery for those at the bottom of the economic ladder, the homeless. We are happy to report, thanks to a new collaborative city-county public-private partnership, progress is indeed being made.
How do we solve the problem of homelessness? Well, we know some of the proven methods across the country: permanent supportive housing for those who are the most in need, rapid rehousing to help people get a fresh start on a new home. We know all these methods. The question is, do we have the resources to apply to those methods to make a big difference?
The new coordinated entry system will provide regional housing options: 2 in Manatee County, Jewish Family and Children's Service, and the Salvation Army in the city of Sarasota, Center of Hope in Nokomis, and a 6th location to be approved in Northport. And ironically, the most densely populated homeless area in the city is also the hottest new center for housing and commerce. We're talking about the Rosemary District. The latest headline, a recent research survey of residents has led to a mission statement and a comprehensive set of core principles that are intended to guide the future of this amazing urban renaissance. We recently took a tour. How are you going forward? We're at a point now where this is the neighborhood to watch. I mean, you're in an ideal location here. So much is going on. Talk about live, work, and play. What are you doing to move forward with this and kind of capture, we're serious, we're part of the community, and we're a player?
Right. Well, everything evolved, as it often does, from a series of conversations a couple years ago, when we had a set of circumstances that were both promising and I think a little bit troubling to people. The promising part was there was a serious interest in investment in the Rosemary District, seeing the Rosemary District as the next exciting area for growth in Sarasota, really with the potential to be one of the best neighborhoods in the state of Florida. So, out of those conversations, a couple things became clear. One, there was no plan for the Rosemary District, even though there was a tremendous level of investment and development about to happen. Two, at that time, as you know, there was no active planning department in the city, nor was there even a planning director. So we had all this activity that was about to begin, some already underway. There was no plan, there was no planning department or planning director. And a group of us decided, why don't we just take the reins and see if we can initiate a grassroots effort.
One thing is for sure, The Rosemary District is a vibrant example of the demand for inner-city housing in Sarasota. But it is not cheap. The case of former Sarasota County Deputy Frank Bybee reminds us that senior lives matter. Bybee was convicted and sentenced to 15 years in prison for kidnapping, exploiting, and defrauding an 80-year-old woman. Faced with life in prison, Charlotte County Judge Donald Mason cited Bybee's clean record as justification for the light sentence. But he left no doubt about his disgust in closing courtroom comments, saying, quote, "You will forever be remembered as a bad cop." We're still cleaning up from Hurricane Irma. One of the casualties of the storm, the largest gumbo limbo tree in the country, located in DeSoto National Memorial Park in Bradenton. That's too bad, but you know, what's a gumbo limbo tree?
These trees live to be about 100 years old, and the biggest one that all this wood is from behind me was close to 90. So it was at the end of its lifespan, had a disease that was made its fall inevitable anyway, and then these cracks.
After Irma, we noticed a large crack going down the northwest side of the column pedestal of the tree, and at that point, it was beyond being able to keep the tree together.
Even though we lost the big gumbo tree, free cuttings from the tree were distributed to the public, so the tree will live on. The Sarasota Architectural Foundation held its 4th annual celebration of the world-renowned Sarasota School of Architecture. The event kicked off at the incredible His Studio on Lido Shores with a tribute to Tim Siebert.
In those days, there was no government in Sarasota County. There was no, well, it was very nice.
Yeah.
There was no building department for the county.
Sure.
So when you wanted to build something, you just went out and started. And that's kind of how we did it with this. He wanted a studio, and he laid out his program. I made him some sketches. They seemed to suit him. And so I began the working drawings. And at the time, I guess I was, well, 23 or 4.
Sarasota is home to a unique school of modern and contemporary architecture. Many of those buildings, like the His Studio, are still here. Since moving from downtown Sarasota to the Venice Airport Fairgrounds, the Chalk Festival has continued to grow. This year was no exception, as we found out when we just paid them a visit. This is considered the most important pavement art event in the world. Hundreds of artists from across the globe participated.
So far, I think it's fantastic. The artists themselves are the real interesting part, because they stop and talk to you, and they'll give you all kinds of information that you never knew before. So it's a real learning experience.
The 2018 festival will return to the Venice Airport. The theme next year, Garden of Wonders, a tribute to the marvels of the natural world and the human imagination. Don't go away now. When we return, we will be talking with Sarasota historian Jeff Laird about the dramatic changes going on in our community, a unique look back on our formative past, and a look forward at what we are becoming, from the perspective of a man who knows the story. Welcome back, everyone. My next guest is Jeff Laird, historian extraordinaire in our community. For those very few that don't know who Jeff is, well, today you'll get to know him. Thank you for coming, Jeff.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm going to start out with my comments. To me, you are sort of the uber scribe of this city. You're the keeper of our history. You hold the key to the city on so many preservation levels and so many of our assets. I want to talk to you about today, your assessment. Look what's happening today. Downtown, the Rosemary District, which I talk about on my show. You've got development downtown. How do you reconcile all that you have done, all your past historical analyses? How do you begin to start? A lot of it's going to happen. How do you reconcile that with what's going on now? So talk to me about that.
Well, I think that Sarasota never met a developer it didn't fall in love with. And it's not only me. I mean, I've been here since 1950, and I always hear, well, you've seen so many changes. Well, obviously, but if you moved here 10 years ago,
Sure.
you've seen so many changes.
Oh, 5 years, yeah.
It's just remarkable. And, you know, we go downtown, my wife Jennifer and I go downtown a lot to eat or whatever.
I see you at the farmer's market all the
At
time.
farmer's market, and I'm angry every time we get downtown because it's like a behemoth of buildings, you know, one right after the other, and consequently we lost the character that made Sarasota such a neat place to go to in the first place.
How do you define what that character was and why we lost it? I mean, how we lost it?
Well, like I said, it's like the community never meant a developer it didn't love. And I think we're a poster area for what happens if you just let development run rampant. And consequently, we have 18-story buildings where maybe 4 stories would have been nice. You know, or 18-story buildings, maybe not in the heart of the town, maybe like on 41 or Fruitville Road or whatever. But what made Sarasota so attractive was, I think, the downtown core for one thing, the bayfront for another thing, the keys. Now they're so overdeveloped, they've just lost their character.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I was interviewing, that will come later, I was interviewing Tim Siebert, who had said that for years, Sarasota lacked good planning. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I was not surprised to learn that they just got a city planner not too long ago.
That's right.
I mean, it's just unbelievable. You know, Tim Siebert, great architect, great man, and he moved to Boca Grande because they have, they protected what they had, and Sarasota has not protected what it had.
Right, you talked about zoning.
Zoning, absolutely.
So how do you see, with the Rosemary, of course, it comes down a little, there's density more than height. How do you analyze the Rosemary District? That has truly risen.
It has, what I find out, like places like City Side, you know, beautiful apartments, and they really add to the community and to the area. What's interesting to me about Rosemary is that all this newness going on there now, the hallmark of the place is the oldest place in Sarasota, which is Rosemary Cemetery.
Right.
You know, so.
Well, that's the beauty of, in a way, we took a camera tour of Rosemary, seeing all those different sites. There's so much diversity there. And it's almost going through a renaissance. So you have a little bit of both.
Right.
Some affordable, or depending on what you term affordable,
Yes.
some not so.
Right, exactly. But, you know, and the other thing that comes with all the 18-story buildings and all the newcomers, where does the traffic go?
Well,
You know, it's like putting 20 pounds of potatoes in a 15-pound sack. There's only so much room. And I don't think the solution to the problem is another roundabout. I don't think there is a solution anymore.
so you don't feel that roundabouts are the way to go. How do you feel going forward now? What do we do? I mean, obviously we're going to go through this in the next few months and years about Gulfstream and 41.
Right.
You know, people are coming, the condos are being built. What do we do? How do we allay some of those fears and concerns of people?
Well, I think it's too late, frankly. I mean, the horse got out of the barn, absolutely. And it's going to get worser and worser and worser. And we're going to keep getting more people, and it's just more congested.
But I think in Sarasota, to tout it as work, play, live. So you need to have all the ingredients to the downtown core, the density, places to work, healthcare that we're just talking about.
Right.
So how do you accommodate all styles of living? And I think that's what we're trying to do. It's so diverse, but yet there are affordable housing issues, of course.
Well, you can't be a worker in the real sense of the word in Sarasota and live downtown. There's just no way.
Right.
So that's a shame.
Well, it's interesting. You know, I wanted to read this. The reason I'm going to mention this because I was asked to comment on it. When in 2014, you received the Florida Trust for Historic Preservation's Individual Distinguished Service Award, and I do note it because I wrote a letter, and I got that letter out, and as to why I thought that you should get that award. That was quite an award you got. I mean, you have such history. You have such opinions. You back so much of it up with history, and all your books. I mean, we could take an hour to talk about all your books and what has happened. And that was my point, to try to get where are we now, and how do you live here, how do you move forward here?
Well, you know, I love Sarasota. I've always
Good.
loved it. I appreciated growing up here and working here, retiring here. But I'll tell you, a sad aside is my son was in town, Jeffrey, who's my oldest son, and they're thinking about moving to Florida. And so I'm up, well, great, you moved to Sarasota. He said, no, he doesn't even like it here anymore.
To Sarasota?
Yeah, it's just changed so much and so dramatically. And I think that's true of a lot of people.
Well, it's interesting. It's and it's wonderful to get both sides here, because you know a lot of what you speak, because you've had your finger on the pulse in so many nooks and crannies in this city and county that we listen, and it's interesting to see how we have come to this point. And you'll have a lot of people disagreeing and a lot of people agreeing, absolutely.
Yeah, there was a lady that wrote an article for The Nation magazine, and she basically said, this is in 1954 or 5, she said, we better take things in hand right now, or we're gonna end up being an imitation Miami. And if you look at Sarasota now and Miami then, she was right.
Yeah, well, a lot of people do think that whether it's not Miami or Fort Lauderdale.
Right.
You know, we're about out of time. I could go on and on and on
Well,
about.
thank you.
I had not time to talk about your books, but I'm hearing you. I respect your opinion. I've heard you loud and clear. This is wonderful. You know of what you speak. And thank you for coming on. And maybe down the road, as we continue to see what happens with our burgeoning population and community, all our neighborhoods, we'll be talking to you again.
Well, thanks so much, Suzanne.
Thank you so much. Thanks to Jeff Laird. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. My guest now is David Viren, CEO of Sarasota Memorial Healthcare System. David, thanks so much for coming.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's great to be on your show today.
Well, wonderful. I want to start out with my statement on how I feel about Sarasota Memorial Healthcare System. I like to call it the People's Hospital. This is our public hospital. What does that mean to be the People's Hospital in the city of Sarasota? Let's start out with that. Why do you want to be at a public hospital?
Well, I can tell you for our hospital, we have a great healthcare system, okay? We take care of everyone. We take care of everyone at all different walks of the community that come into our place. And we think at the end of the day, we have a great responsibility to the welfare of the citizens that are in Sarasota County and even the surrounding counties. And it's something that everything that we put in it stays in this county. It doesn't go back to Nashville and dividends for owners or anything like that. It's all here and reinvested in us.
Wonderful. How do you see the hospital over the next 5 years? We're a burgeoning community. I mean, no matter what we talk about in the community, we're exponentially having more people coming into our community. And a lot of those people will be 65 and over. How are we going to address their health needs with some of the other choices? How do we as a public hospital be the standout quality of care facility?
So everything we do does start with the patient. We always go to each individual patient and we look at the quality surrounding that, and we build our business models around that. I'll tell you what, you go back 10 years ago and this hospital was basically, our healthcare system was a hospital on Highway 41, big white building. Today it's a lot different. We have offices all over the region. We have urgent cares, we have doctor's offices, we have diagnostic centers, even a freestanding ER in Northport. We're going to continue to move into a diversified system and to take our services to patients in a very cost-effective way while keeping our high quality that everyone's used to.
Right. So in other words, you're going to be, we talk a lot about decentralizing, having other points of entry. We're going to be doing that with the homeless, and that will meet the needs of people in different communities. And that sounds like, and how that will affect your central location.
Right. So every part of this community is a very dynamic community that we live in. Every part of this community has different aspects of needs. Okay, so the needs of Newtown, for example, are going to differ from the needs of Northport or the needs of Venice or the needs of someone off a university.
Exactly.
And so we try to match those services there and put services that are needed in those communities. it is it's something that we are working on constantly, and I think we have some great new exciting things coming out in the future.
How, by the way, speaking of Newtown, how's the program going there? I was at the opening when the clinic opened for the residences.
Right. It is an amazing process there. It's an amazing product. We were able to put physicians, certified physicians, boarded medical students in that community in a brand new building and a brand new facility. And really the first time a lot of these people have had primary care in that community. And we're grateful to have the opportunity to have been a partner and being able to deliver that.
Well, it sounds like the word is access, how we access your great services to communities that may have different needs. And that's the beauty of our community. We are a diverse community, that we have that. Again, back to the 5 years, how do you see the health care climate, public versus private, with a lot that's going on? Because that is number one, and you obviously see the stories of the healthcare needs we need with nurses coming into our care centers. How is Sarasota Memorial going to be dealing with that?
It's a big challenge. We have grown, you probably don't know this, over the last 3 years, we've grown 40% of our business over the last 3 years. We've added over 2,000 jobs, to the net jobs, to this campus and to the whole overall system. It is it's a challenge every day to continue to find good quality people that are qualified to do this work and quite honestly have the right attitude to do it. So you can be technically qualified, but you still have to have that people skill, because that's what we deal with each and every day. This area is going to continue to have challenges around attracting people and employees to work in systems like ours.
Oh, sure, and there's going to be a high demand for that because of the age of people coming in, and that is not going to stop. People want to move here, and they love going by a hospital and knowing that they're going to be cared for.
So we are making plans. We have plans on the books right now for the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and we have some really exciting things that are coming on in each one of those type of time frames. Our challenge is keeping up with the capacity demands, with the population, with the changing healthcare environment that we continue to see year after year.
And will there be more facilities like the facility in Newtown that will grow in different parts? And how does that relate vis-a-vis the other hospitals or the other communities that want to build hospitals?
Well, I think the facility that's in Newtown is probably going to be unique to Newtown, okay? Just like a facility that's going to be on, maybe the one on St. Armands is going to be unique to St. Armands, or the one that's in Northport is going to be unique to Northport. So once again, we try to take the needs of those communities and actually tailor a product to what's best and what fits the needs at that time.
And you also, I know I'm on the board of Healthy Start Coalition, you have the neonatal and an exceptional area where other hospitals don't have as far as neonatal and childbirth OBGYN.
There's a lot of things that we do that no one else does.
That's what I'm hearing.
And so a lot of these things take a lot of investment that they don't necessarily make a margin at the end of the day. In fact, a lot of them lose money. And
absolutely.
But we balance the entire equation between services that are going to provide a margin and to using others. NICU is a good example of that. And Mother Baby, overall, we're the only hospital in Sarasota County that delivers babies.
That's right.
And we've got to figure out, because truth is, we're at the north side of this county. We've got to figure out how to take that product and give service to people in the central and the southern part of the county, and we have plans around that coming up.
That's wonderful. There's so much more to talk about. We're out of time right now, but hopefully I'd like you to give me an invitation. I might want to come bring our crew over to your hospital and maybe do the app and you know, get through the hospital and see what's going on there now. It's just so beautiful. I was at the opening a few years ago. It's just wonderful. Thank you so much for coming. And thank you to David Viren, and we will be right back. Don't go away. In this show, we've been talking about the state of the city of Sarasota. It is a very exciting time, but we are having growing pains. And justifiably, there are concerns. As we mentioned earlier, parking, free and paid, is an issue. In Sarasota, Sound Off segment, We asked folks on Main Street where they park and whether they think we have enough parking spaces.
No, I don't think, I really don't think that the people that are looking for a parking spot are really actually complaining, just at the fact there isn't that many of them.
I don't think that necessarily parking meters are going to fix the parking situation downtown at all, though.
I don't like the whole idea of the meters. It's nice to be able to come down here.
No, the one place you can come is down here without having to pay to park. It would be nice if it would continue that way, in my opinion.
Frankly, we haven't had problems. I've come down here dinner time. I've come down here
We've been lucky.
During the day, and seem to find a place on the street.
Even in the middle of season.
Right, yeah.
There's too many cars. I mean, if you're eating outside like this, a lot of the fumes from the cars. I just don't understand why the first 3 blocks here, they just don't get rid of all the car parking and make it a big promenade and bring a lot more people down here. And maybe they can widen the sidewalks and make it a little bit more enjoyable for pedestrians. Yeah.
In the near future, when all this new development is finished and the residences are occupied, you hope that everybody won't be using their vehicles to drive down here, because it's going to be an onslaught, I suspect. iRide's going to be helpful. People riding bicycles, walking here will be good because you are in walking distance. But nonetheless, I think it's going to be a challenge.
Very interesting. We'll keep an eye on the next steps and have a bunch of quarters ready next time you head downtown. And until next time, tell your friends they can watch the show anytime. Anytime online at SuzanneAtwell.org, Facebook, and YouTube at Suzanne Atwell Show. That wraps it up. We leave you with the sights and sounds of the Siesta Key Crystal Classic. See you around town.